two of my favorite people on the planet. Hello, Francis. Hello, Marshall. My goodness, Summer, you didn't tell me that. Now I'm going to start crying. I'm going to take a moment and compose myself. Welcome, everybody. Summer, I see. I'm going to put Francis on the very tip top of my screen, and I will hand the microphone over to my colleague, Summer, to kick us off today.
Yes, wonderful. Oh, what a good group. This is so exciting. Jason had asked me for a surprise when we first got on, and I said, the surprise is that Francis attended the last session I was in, and now she's attending again. So, well, you can't beat this Friday, right? Like, you just cannot beat this Friday. This is great. So some of you have seen me in previous sessions. So, and for those who haven't, Summer Rothrock serves as the director in the Office of Cross-Cultural and Leadership Development at the University of Pittsburgh in the Division of Student Affairs, and use she, her, hers pronouns. It is my pleasure to welcome you to this Hesselbein Global Academy virtual summit session entitled Lead Yourself First. Please note that this session is being recorded. The world around us has changed, and leaders are in a position to influence those they serve, love, and inspire. But what happens when you are tired? When your goals are big, resources low, and responsibility heavy? During this interactive workshop, participants will reflect on what makes them, them. They will explore the two whys: why you do what you do and what you hope happens as a result. Participants will learn about the intersection between self-care, personal achievement, and organizational success. Participants will create a rough draft self-care plan to share at home. Oh, I'm really looking forward to that. And if they choose, at work, as well as a self-initiated checklist they can use this weekend and for the rest of our lives. Our presenter for this session is Jason W. Womack. Mr. Jason J.W. Womack is an author, TEDx speaker, husband, and multi-sport athlete. Currently, he teaches leadership at a university in Alabama. At age 47, he closed his coaching company in California and moved to Montgomery to teach at the Leader Development course. During his program, hear what an executive coach and leadership instructor thinks about such topics as feedback, vulnerability, and resilience. You will walk away with two insights you can use to be a better, more connected leader and employee, whether you work in a public, private, or government organization. With that introduction, JW, the virtual stage is all yours.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. For those of you watching this as a recording, thank you. Thank you for giving yourself the gift of your own attention. For those of us here live today, it has been a day filled with service to self and service to others. By clicking that start video button, we get to see you and you get to be with us. For those of you who are in an environment where we're still trying to figure out what the new is going to be, I'm not calling it going backwards. I don't even know if it's a new normal. What I do know is that we've gotten an amazing experience in what the constant is. Over the past 18 months, we've experienced unprecedented pressure to change, to adapt, to innovate, but maybe most importantly, to ask for help. So right now, I'm in the gallery view of Zoom. And what I'm going to invite you to do is to click that same view gallery button. I have a very intentional reason for doing this. In a moment, I'm going to unfold. I'm going to get you to write some things down. I'm going to get you to think a little bit. And should you choose, I'm going to ask you to share with one another. I want to start today's presentation, facilitation. Maybe we should call it an experience. And what I want to invite you to do is to consider what I have found to be the 3 things I can do to change life. 3 things I can do to change my life. 3 things I can do to change a student's life. Maybe even 3 things I can do to change my friend's life. Now, they do come in an order. Some of the things that I talk about are more circular in nature, where I can enter at any point. But when I think about changing a life, the first thing that I know I have to do is I need to make awkward eye contact. I know in a world where we've been forced to physically distance, I never called it social distancing, by the way. In fact, we needed more social connection over the past 18 months. In a world where we've been forced to physically distance, I have an exercise. In the gallery view in Zoom, will you please look around the screen? If you're watching this on video, this will be a fun exercise. And will you please find someone that you can look into their eyes for the count of 3, 2, quick, look away. That was weird, wasn't it? We live in a world where we're going so fast sometimes that we notice someone. Has anyone ever done this in a class or at a networking event? You're holding something to drink or maybe a snack. You look across the room and you lock eyes with someone. In fact, will you just cover your camera briefly if that has ever happened to you? Awkward, you look across the room, fantastic. And then what happens? You start the self-talk. Did they look at me? Should I look back at them? Should I introduce myself? No, I can't introduce myself. We have all this conversation. Now, if the term awkward eye contact is too California for you, I grew up in California, so sometimes I'm a little bit weird on that side. Why don't you just write down the word notice? What would happen, I ask, if we noticed one another? In fact, let's do it again. So back in gallery view, look around the screen, find someone else. We're going to count to 5. Just look in their eyes. They might be looking back at you. 3, 2, 1. Will you nod your head if that was weird? Keep doing that. And not just in Zoom, but maybe in line at a coffee shop, maybe across a conference room in a table, maybe while you're waiting in the lobby of a hotel or an airport or some other location. Now, I shared with you that there were 3 things that you can do to change life. Please, you need to go to number 2, because if you just stare at people, they're going to think you're weird. The second thing that we can do is initiate and engage in a meaningful conversation. And that word meaningful has meaning. I grew up in a world where I was taught a rule. All right? This was guidelines from above, and the rule was a golden one. And that rule said that I should treat others as I want to be treated. Now, I get to work in an academically free environment. I get to work under a banner of non-attribution. I also am a researcher and a doctoral candidate. So I can say things that you get to experience and experiment with. What I'm about to say, it's going to come across as harsh for some of my listeners. I understand that. And what I'm going to ask you to do for the next 35 minutes is to suspend judgment and allow yourself to add a thought. Before I talk about meaningful conversation and my new rule beyond the golden one, I'd like to ask a favor. I'm going to say some things, and when I say something that makes it very clear that you and I are different, I need you to cover your camera for me. So I'm going to say some things, and when I say something, you go, ooh, that's very different than me. Just cover your camera. I'll go through about 4 of these. Here's the first one. I am an American. I am a man. I am married. I don't have children. I lived for 47 years in California. I started my own. Okay, stop. Here's my question. If very quickly we realize that we are different people, how can I treat you as I want to be treated? What happens if I start talking about what my life at age 49 is like without having children? We're different. What if I start talking about my life as going through an estrangement with my brother whom I've not talked to in 3 years? The moment we start talking about our differences, now we have a chance to connect under them. I get to hear what's meaningful to you, and you get to hear what's meaningful to me. Now, whatever you call this, I was taught it was called the platinum rule. The platinum rule. Let me talk about something with you that's meaningful to you. In fact, here's going to be our first ask of the group. Can I get you to lean up? The lights in my office just went out. Stand by one moment. That's what happens when you work at a university. And you know what? For this, I'm going to move my camera so that you can see a different view. When you're thinking to yourself about how you can engage with that person across from you, if you could lean forward into your computer, will you click on the chat icon down at the bottom of your screen? That's going to activate a little box. We've been doing this for 18 months in the virtual world. But here's my invitation to this audience. They're in chat. Would you please type something that is interesting to you, that you like to talk with other people about, something that's meaningful to you, that you like to sit down and have a cup of coffee or a meal or go for a walk or maybe spend some time with someone and discuss. I'm going to be quiet for 30 seconds and let you enter into chat. What are meaningful topics of conversation to you? And as you click enter, please take a moment and scroll up and down and look at the diversity that we have represented today. Look at the different levels of interest and meaning that are represented here. Cover your camera, please, very quickly. Have you typed 2 in yet? And that's what happens. Because we are not just the name that we put in a Zoom room. We are not just the title that we wear on our business card. So as I start to think about this concept of changing a life, as I start to think about changing my life, it has started. It's no mistake. Marshall and Francis, I'm going to take a risk and share a story. I didn't know you were coming today. So for the audience, these are 2 of my longest time friends ever. Marshall, you won't remember this, but in the mid 2000s, you sent me an email inviting me to come to New York to launch What Got You Here Won't Get You There. And at that party, at that Four Seasons event, I remember looking across the room as you and I were talking, and I pointed, and then I quickly lowered my hand, and you leaned toward me, and you said, "Yes, that is Francis." I don't know what expression I had on my face, Marshall, that evening, but your guidance, go meet her, changed the trajectory of my life. Francis, when I walked toward the table that you were sitting at, and you looked up at me and read my name tag, and you called me Mr. Womack. And the first words I remember you saying were, "How can I help you?" And I remember saying, "I'm not going to answer this question by thinking on my feet. May I get back to you?" Friends attending today's program, that has started a nearly 15-year relationship where we've been able to research together and write together. And Francis, remember we did some webinars together in your office. There's a third thing that you can do to change life. And today is a manifestation of the example of that. It's not just enough to notice one another. It's not just enough to have some meaningful conversation, a fleeting conversation. Friends, we have to manufacture a way to follow up after that meaningful conversation. You've been inside of programs all day long today, listening to speakers, connecting with audience members, reading through the chat. And by the way, I hope some of you are chatting to one another because you've just shared what you're interested in. following up, letting someone know that they were heard, that they were seen, that their presence was felt. I could ask this question of the audience. Who has ever received a thank you card in the mail? Just so that everyone can see, just cover your camera. Look at all of those hands. Has anyone ever kept that thank you card for much longer than maybe it should have been there on the desk? And I ask you why. Maybe it's because it increases the oxytocin chemical in our brains. Maybe it's something that we do to take care of ourselves, to remember that connection that we have with one another. Now, I've been sharing this idea of awkward eye contact, meaningful conversation, and following up. I've been teaching this for a long, long time. Several years ago, I had to amend that third one. I now ask people to follow up, appropriately. And let me share where this came from. There are times when you're going to be in a meaningful conversation with somebody. It's Friday. Those of you here live today, we're coming out of or moving toward, depending on where you are around the world, some response to the coronavirus pandemic. We are coming out of or heading toward, depending on where you are, social unrest, racial inequity, economic problems. The people who attend this kind of a program, we attract those that need someone like us to serve, to listen, and to share. And what wound up happening is, because of who and how we are, because of what I call the two whys that I'm going to talk about in just a moment, what winds up happening is people bring us. They share meaningfully, deeply, authentically, genuinely. And there's a certain number of us, and my hand's going to go up as I ask this. I'm going to ask you to cover the camera if it's true for you. How many of you on this call today, when someone brings you a problem, a challenge, a situation that they're dealing with, and as they're sharing that with you, you like to start to solve their problem? Will you just self-assess and cover your camera? Who are my problem solvers out there? Well, you know what you could do, and you know what you should do, and don't do this, and do. I took a class last week using the masterclass.com platform. I learned from Aaron Sorkin, the movie and TV writer. And he told me something in that video that has stuck with me, that resonated with me, that finally put words on a feeling I've had for almost 5 years. What Aaron Sorkin said about storytelling, about bringing something to an audience, he said, don't tell people what they already know. Here's when follow up, appropriately really struck home for me. I got a phone call on a Saturday morning. It was early, 6:30 a.m. It was a friend of mine, and he said, hey, do you have time for coffee? Now, full transparency, we were in the middle of the pandemic, and I had been hosting Zoom coffee chats as a way to bring my friends together. And I said, absolutely, let me get to my computer. He said, no. Could we meet in your backyard face to face? Of course. And over the next hour and a half conversation, where he shared meaningfully an issue that he had been carrying for 7 years of his career, something that I had no way of comprehending, no way of understanding, and no connection to. And for 90 minutes, I didn't solve his problem. I didn't tell him what he should just do. I didn't share with him my ideas of how to fix that 7-year-long issue. At the end of our coffee, as we hugged, and as he walked away, I said, on Tuesday mornings, I'm going to send you a text message. It's code. And the text message is going to say 0-10. It's a scale. I said, all I want you to do when you get my text message is reply with a number. And then I want you to add one thing that you can do to increase it by 1. We're going on our 4th month of me sending a text message on Tuesdays. Some weeks he sends back a 3 or a 4, and then a paragraph of what he's going to do to raise that number. Some weeks he sends a text back with a 7 or an 8 and one thing that he can do to raise it. For those of you who have been in some of the events thus far, today's program, for those of you who are reflecting right now on conversations, meaningful conversations that you've had, I am going to ask all of you, there are 42 beautiful people on the call today. Can I ask you to lean forward into the chat? I'm going to be quiet for 60 seconds this time. Without using any names, without using any identifying factors, would some of you type in what you know you want to do this weekend to follow up after you've had a meaningful conversation? If something hit you right away in your mind, I'm going to ask for you to take a risk and type that into chat. For those of you who are sitting back thinking, do I have something to follow up on? As these come in, I'll invite you to spend the next minute connecting with one another via words in the chat. Friends, I'm going to let you go for 60 seconds. I'll be back in a minute. To my friends in the Hesselbein community, I'll give an offer. Towards the bottom of the chat, there are 3 dots that allow you to save this chat. Sometimes people just need an idea. Sometimes people just need something that they saw someone else doing or even struggling with. And that can be the impetus to take some kind of action. Next to the chat icon, there's another icon called reactions. That was just 60 seconds of thinking and typing. Could I get a few of you to click a reaction on how you're feeling right now about thinking of these 3 things you can do to change life? I see one of those. Ah, beautiful. I see that reaction. Now, friends, there is something that happens when we look across the screen at one another, when we notice one another. So I want to share this concept of the 2 whys. You've heard this concept of beginning with purpose. Stephen Covey wrote about it in his book. Anybody around here ever read that book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People? You probably remember that one, right? Just begin with the end in mind. When I started addressing this concept of why, it actually brought me back to my childhood. It brought me back to my brother and my sister and some of the times that we may have competed for attention from my parents. That's what I call getting in trouble, by the way. And I remember from time to time, one of my parents would ask, why did you do that? Now, let's pretend that you're a child or you have a child. They do something to get your attention, positively or negatively. When you ask them why they did something, Will someone put in the chat? Let me get a few of you. What word does the next sentence sometimes begin with? Why did you do that? What word? Let me get a few of you to put in chat. What comes to your mind? Here's what I found in a little bit of research that I put together. When I ask you why you do what you do, why did you pick the career you're in? Why did any one of us show up today? There's an answer that gets us from the past to the present, and that answer generally begins with because. Why did you become a teacher? Someone could ask me. Because when I was in high school, I had an amazing teacher, and she inspired me to want to bring the information that I have to my students. Any why question that begins with the answer begins with because, that gets us from past to present. Let me ask someone to type into chat so we have a record of it. Could I get someone to type in the 2 words, so that? The next time you ask someone why they do what they do, why they're engaged in what they're engaged in, why they care about what they care about, get them to answer the so that. The so that brings me from the present into the future, right? Why did I become a teacher? I became a teacher because I had an inspiring one. Why did I move from California to Alabama? By the way, this was not my life dream when I was growing up. I can tell you right now, I had never thought about moving to the South. I moved here so that I could work with a bigger community at a research institution. When we combine these 2 concepts, 3 things that I can do to change life: awkward eye contact, a meaningful conversation, and some way to follow up appropriately. I'm about to put you in the center stage. Let me just see a big smile, a nod of a head, or a little thumbs up. Is it okay if I had you talk amongst yourselves for 7 minutes about what we've thought about and written about so far? If I get a nod like this or a smile, we are going to make this happen. In your notes, if you have a piece of paper right there, I'm going to give you about 90 seconds of thinking before talking. Let's do this. On one side of that piece of paper are the becauses. On the other side of the piece of paper are the so that's. And what I'm wondering is, why did you come to a session called Lead Yourself First? Why are you going to spend the next 15 minutes focused on leading you? Because, and so that. I'm going to look up, I'm going to see all of your beautiful faces leaning toward a piece of paper or a whiteboard or a 3x5 note card. And I'll be back in 87 seconds. You're about halfway there. The method behind this process, if I get the people that I'm serving to give themselves the gift of their own attention, to write some ideas or reflect for a moment, then you're about to find yourself in a small group and just a group of 5 of you, you'll have the opportunity to say hello to one another, to introduce yourself to one another. And then you get to choose at what level of meaningful conversation you'd like to initiate. For me, this exercise is a beautiful demonstration of a term that I'm becoming more and more in love with called equity. When you get into your breakout room, you're gonna take a look at the clock. You'll know that you'll have about 10 minutes. And at the end of those 10 minutes, who will you have heard from? Maybe more importantly, what will you have shared? And of course, the main point, what can you walk away with to follow up, appropriately? Most of you have been around the Zoom environment to know what's about to happen. I'm gonna click a button. You're gonna find yourself in a smaller Zoom room. If you turn your video on so people can see, if you turn your microphone on so that they can hear, if you're ready and you give me a little wave goodbye, I'm gonna ask you to go talk in small groups. Give me a big smile, a wave, or a wink if you are ready for this next activity. Adeyemi, can you hear me, my friend?
Yes, I can hear you, sir. I can hear
Hello.
you.
Welcome, welcome.
Hello.
I see that you're on a phone, and I would love to hear what you thought of when you wrote some things down.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. I'm with you.
You can hear me, correct?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, fantastic. So will you share just a little bit with me about this idea of the why, because, and so that?
Okay, so for the section on because, I said because I believe that to lead others to achieve great things begins with you. So that is why on this summit it begins with you, and so that is why I'm on the summit to learn how to lead myself. Then so that I said so that I can acquire great leadership skills. So that's the more reason why in this summit.
And what I love about this, and am I pronouncing your name correctly if I say Adeyemi?
Yes, you pronounced my name correctly.
What I love about this is I am not a mathematician. I don't do maths, but
Okay.
I understand how you can continue to take that same line of logic. So
Okay.
tell me one more time, what was your so that?
I said so that I can acquire great leadership skills.
And now you can understand why I can ask you, why do you want to acquire great leadership skills?
Okay.
So that
Okay, so that um because so that so that the volunteering activities and humanitarian activities that I take part in my university, I can ensure that we do great exploits and we achieve our aims. Thank
are you
you.
ready for this? Are you sitting down?
Yes. Yes.
We can achieve our aims so that
We can achieve our aims so that we can change the narrative in the area of innovation for agriculture in Africa.
show me that smile one more time. Did you feel how different that fourth one was?
Yes.
Do you know how I know?
No.
You closed your eyes and you saw something in your mind, yes?
Yes.
I saw you do that. So yes, you are attending the Hesselbein Global Academy to learn great leadership skills. Yes, it's true. But what was that fourth one more time? Let me hear it.
Yes.
It feels different, yes?
Using innovation to drive change in the area of agriculture in Africa. Yes.
And now, one thing that I might do, I might go to the chat in Zoom. And I know you're on a phone, so you'll have to scroll. But Adiyami, I'm gonna take a risk. Someone on today's call is interested in innovation. Someone in this call is interested in creativity at university in Africa. And so everything that we do, it has a purpose in mind to help me with my so that.
Yes.
Hey, I'm going to ask you to spend the next 2 minutes. Will you just journal in your notebook with what you're feeling right now?
Okay.
All righty. So for those of you who have rejoined and you're not on video, perfectly okay. We're going to have the rest of the group join us probably in about a minute. what I do is I always give folks a little countdown timer, which means we have about 70 seconds before we start in earnest. So if anybody would like to come on video and at least wave hello, I could see your beautiful face. Otherwise, in about a minute, I will take off and I'll finish up the program. I'm gonna do some behind the scenes. Summer, with the survey, do you send that out via a chat link or does that go to their email?
Dr. Popovich emails it to everyone at the end of the virtual summit.
Perfecto. Melina, did I pronounce that correctly? Welcome back. Welcome back. Thank you for coming back. Hello, Miss Rivers. Welcome back. This is fantastic. I love it when people come, look at the smiles. Some people come back and they're actually smiling. Raul, hello. Stacy, welcome back. Sarah, good to see you. I have run out of time and I don't have enough time to read it. Hey, will you all reach down to the reactions icon and will you please send your partner a reaction? I'd love to know what that last 9 minutes was like. Okay, I got one of those. Oh, I got one of those. Oh, this is fantastic. I got another one of those. Great. What if 3 things we do tomorrow changed life? Changed our life, changed a friend's life, changed our community's life. What if we noticed? What if we sat back and listened to one another? And what if we allowed the space for that person across the screen, the phone, and even the text message to share with us what they are challenged by, dealing with, or facing? And then what if, and this is where it's going to get interesting, I wonder, how will this community follow up with Francis, follow up with Pitt, follow up with one another? Anytime you need anything, my ask is that you reach out in the chat. I will drop my cell phone number in case anybody wants to text, if you need someone to listen to or just a connection. Let me make sure that that's in there. We have less than 60 seconds before this session will come to a close. If I could invite you to lean toward the chat, and this will be my last ask for you to share. What is your takeaway? And how will you lead yourself? Would you please take about 60 seconds? What are you going to walk away with this session with? And how will you lead you? As you click enter on your chat, share, just know that we are right there with you. We support you. We believe in you. But maybe most importantly, we need you. Thank you for sharing your time with us today. Summer, I'm going to hand the microphone back over to you.
Wonderful. Wow, what an inspiring session. Such good energy for our Friday. We would like to thank JW again for your presentation this afternoon. We thank all of our participants for participating, for learning, for engaging, and for being here in this virtual format. We can't wait to be back in person with you. Please remember to fill out the survey when Dr. Popovich sends it to your email address that you registered with. Your feedback is so important to us. I'm going to go ahead and end the recording. Final thoughts in the chat, and I will end the Zoom call.